Welcome everybody to Football Is, and that is what I want's Tales of a Groundhopper. Okay then guys, so I'm really happy to have Lewis here. Lewis, Total Hoofball, episode 3 of Tales of a Groundhopper. How you doing, Lewis?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. We had a bit of a chat off air about how we're trying to keep sane at the moment. How's it been going for you?
Yeah, it's not been too bad, thank you. Yeah, lucky we got the dog, got an ex-retired greyhound, so he keeps us busy with his walks and trying to get out. We luckily, obviously, live in Portsmouth, Porchester, so able to run down the seafront, trying to keep sane, avoiding people. But yeah, it's not been too bad, but starting to get a bit cooped up, obviously.
Yeah, I could do with it with a greyhound, mate. I've got 2 cats, and I think a greyhound would probably do me good for me exercise. How old is he or she?
He is about 7 years old, roughly now. Yeah, we've had him for about 3 years, so yeah, he's long into retirement now.
Spot on. I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time to speak to me today. I've got a lot to speak to you about. Actually, I've been doing a bit of research. You do like your ground hopping, mate, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But it's like my old man hobby these days. Definitely getting stuck into that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I think it's becoming a bit of a online like niche thing some people are getting stuck into, really, isn't it? You've seen a lot of similar people. It's a great community and really enjoyable hobby.
We've spoke before. I follow Man United. I've done all my life, and I think this year I decided I was going to do non-league, and it's just opened my eyes to the clubs out there and the ground hopping community. And I say community, it is a community, isn't it? It's growing and growing. The interest in it's brilliant to see.
Oh, 100%. Like again, a lot like yourself, I've supported Man United since the 1990s. My dad supported them when they got relegated with. I think Dennis Law put them down in the 70s.
The back heel, the famous back heel.
I remember him telling stories of like he went up from where I'm originally from in Redditch, just south of Birmingham. In his school uniform on the supporters bus going up onto the Stretford end, and it sounds like a totally different universe. Like I love United to bits, but going back to what you were saying, it's a totally different corporate universe to the non-league community, which is football and camaraderie at its heart, really.
It's spot on, and I agree every word you say there. With the whole what football was then and what it is now for the Premier League, I don't know about you. I've just lost. I mean, I'm sat here with a United shirt on, but I've lost all interest in it, Lewis. To be fair, I really have. I've lost it. I'm not just saying because United are going through turbulent times at the moment, but just professional football in general. It's really dumbed down a bit now, and I've gone to these non-league grounds and I've just fallen in love with it. Absolutely fallen in love with it. The characters you meet, the games you see, the players that you see as well. It's really is phenomenal.
Oh, 100%. I love the fact you said characters there. I've met a few of those in my time over there in the non-league.
Definitely.
But yeah, 100%. I mean, I always, love the Premier League. We'll still watch it, but definitely in the last, decade or so, like as globalization, I guess, has happened really, and the Premier League's gone with that. Something's been a little bit lost from the game. I was watching with all this football that's on the TV at the moment, I was watching the Keane versus Vieira documentary and seeing that rivalry again, the Man United Arsenal, and seeing the intensity in that and how much it's just two teams literally just kicking it out of each other, really wanting the title. Where I know there's still that passion for it now, but it just seems a bit more tame and timid, and I don't want it to just be some sort of like boxing match on the pitch, but you don't see that quite that same passion, and the same from the fans really. And I think seated stadiums and there's a whole range of factors we could go into a whole list, but it's definitely not the same.
Keno scored my favourite goal ever. It was against Juventus in the Champions League, where it was just a header, and it was you've got all your overhead kicks and your goals from the halfway line. And I love Beckham, but that goal just epitomised everything about Roy Keane in my eyes. The guy he knew that he was going to be banned for the final at that point, and he just powered on and led by example. And I go back to the word character. There's not enough of those characters in football anymore, I don't think.
No, they're definitely not. If you think of like Premier League captains, it's hard to name a wide range of captains, isn't it? Just going like, right,
Yeah.
that's an absolute leader. I guess Jordan Henderson is starting to kind of come to the forefront, leading as a captain.
I had that. I was literally thinking the exact same thing then about Jordan Henderson.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you think exactly the same thing straight away, because it's hard to think past that. I mean, there will be others if we spent long enough thinking about it. But, I loved, obviously being from the Midlands, I love Jack Grealish, but Villa captain, I think.
Yeah.
But look at what he's been doing recently. It's not really leading by example, is it? And I know they're footballers and they do things like that, but it's changed that role, definitely.
Isn't it? It goes back to the breed of footballer now, believing that they are above everyone else. I think, going on Twitter and saying everyone needs to stay in, stay safe. This is what we need to do, and then an hour later doing that. It just shows everything about the character that they are now, doesn't it? That they do believe that it's one rule for one and another. It's pathetic. It is. Don't get me wrong. He's a great footballer, isn't he?
Phenomenal.
Talented. Supremely talented, but I digress. I want to talk to you about AFC Porchester. I've seen on your Twitter, on your cover photo, that you're very much a fan. Talk me through them.
Oh, absolutely. I bleed orange these days, bleed tangerine, definitely.
Well done.
So, to be honest, I could say I'm like a lifelong AFC Porchester fan. I'm really not. Like, I've only probably been supporting them, I would say, like, committed to them probably for the season that never will be, basically. I went to a few games maybe a few seasons ago. I moved to Porchester basically about 3 years ago. I've lived in Portsmouth for about 10 years. I came to uni down here, then after traveling settled down here. But yeah, I've lived in Porchester and got down there. But what really struck me about it, really, is it's such a community club. The chairman and all the people are so welcoming. And the style of football they play at that level is fantastic. It seems like a club that's going places, but it hasn't forgotten what non-league football and football is about. Like, there's the community spirit there, and we're hopefully building something really good. Well, we were in the stages of that before the season ended. We're really on the cusp. Whether we would have got promoted or not, it's difficult to say. There was other brilliant teams in it, but the last game we went to, we had a load of my mates down there. We had our flags and, getting some atmosphere going, which at that level is a challenge. But it's about being positive and having a good time. And, the players were all really appreciative, and that's what we really want to build going into next season. But yeah, absolutely love the place at the moment.
I see. I'm already sold. I'm actually writing down now a place I need to go. I tell you what you say about that. There's a team up my end, your end from where you're originally from, called Wolverhampton Casuals, and they are the exact same. They're a brilliantly run club, and they play football the right way. The manager there, Dean Gill, he's had these lads for a long, long time, so he knows the players, he knows the person as well as the players, and plays brilliant football. So we'll have to make a bit of a agreement, mate. I'll come and watch yours. You come and watch mine.
I'm already there. Fantastic.
Brilliant
Love
stuff.
it.
What do you feel? I mean, you've touched on it there about the season that never was. What are your thoughts on the fact they've cancelled the season? Do you think, for me, I feel like they took it the decision too soon. But what are your thoughts on it?
I think, likewise with yourself, I think at the time they made it, I was absolutely gutted. Obviously, there's a slight bit of bias, being as Porchester were third in the league and there was a chance of promotion.
Right.
But if I take that emotion out of it, I still think it was quite premature at the time when that level, when we're talking like the Wessex Premier, step 5 of the non-league. It was definitely premature. However, the current situation and the severity of it, like how it's going, it would have been realistically difficult to finish the season, as gutting as it is to say. I've obviously seen today they've said about the National League being cancelled as well, which is a shame. My concern is how is it all going to run alongside, if the Premier League continues, really, the calendars, how is that all going to line up? It's going to be a bit Wild West, I feel, when it comes to it. But I think just got to now hope that when the new season, when it all does kick off again, as many clubs as possible are in a decent state, and ready to start the season, because people will want to come out and support their teams and hopefully support the local community after all this happens. But there'll be a lot of non-league clubs out there that really need the really need the support, definitely.
And as you touch on there, when football does come back, my hope is that we get a new breed of fan come out, and because they miss the game so much, give their local teams a chance. I mean, one thing I've learned this season, and I say it all the time, is you realise just how much that 3 or 4, £5 admission, how far that goes for each club. How much they need the money coming in through the gate. So I agree wholeheartedly with that. With regards to the season being, I do strongly believe they did it too soon, but you're trying to, you just go on, don't you? You go on and on and on. It's going nowhere. There's nothing we can do about it. I agree with what you said. At the end of it, would they have struggled to finish the season in time? Again, that goes with what you're saying about the Premier League. What are they going to do with that? How is that going to affect the calendar? My big gripe is the FA Cup. I mean, as you all know, the FA Cup starts so much earlier than we've ever been used to.
Absolutely.
Being United fans, third round, wasn't it, for us? January. But for non-league clubs, it's August it starts. So where does that lie? What does that do to the FA Cup? And hopefully it doesn't cost non-league teams money, because each round of the FA Cup's worth a heck of a lot to them, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely huge. It's been my one regret with my hometown team, where originally from Redditch, because that's how we might get onto that, but how I got into non-league football, really. Like,
okay, yeah.
They haven't had a run into the first. Well, they haven't got to the first round since before I was born. Like, and that's a long time. There's been a few close runs. We got into the first round draw where we had a replay with Kettering when I was at university about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I sent my dad down while I was on a night out in Portsmouth to give me score updates, and I was ringing him, and we went out in extra time. So, but that was that, like, going back to what you said, like, that's really important, these cup runs. If you can get a really good run together, you'll get some extra fans down. You might then translate that into long-term fans. It's money. If you even, draw like Chichester, amazing.
Yeah,
I remember going to see them last year, same level as Porchester. They're so lucky, and fair play to them, they're a great club, but so lucky they had that experience and did really well with that, because they'll have benefit from that so much.
Well, especially with what's happening now with the season finishing. I mean, it's the golden ticket for them, isn't it? I do want to touch on that. So, how long have you been ground hopping for, and more importantly, what got you into non-league football?
So ground hopping's it's almost like a two-parted question that you're asking. That I would say, when did I officially, if you want to put a define on its start, ground hopping? Like, I've heard you on the other podcast talking about the Groundhopper app, using that.
Yeah.
I would say only in the last 4 to 5 years have I started like recognizing, how many grounds have I been to? And making a point to go out to those distant backwaters to, let's go to AFC Stoneham on a Tuesday night when it's absolutely raining cats and dogs outside.
Yeah.
Whereas, but I've always been a geography teacher as well. I've always had a bit of an interest in getting about and exploring places, even if it's just literally around the corner, let alone whether it's across the other side of the world. And I'd say probably with non-league football, and that's where it really starts, is probably about 2006. I went to go watch my local team, Redditch United, which is about 13 miles south of Birmingham.
Okay, yeah.
I saw them on the ticker tape on Sky Sports. They were about 9th in the league, and I was like, my hometown team, like, Conference North. That was the kind of peak in the last few years for us.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll go down and check that out. I'd been going down with my mate to a team called Studley, which is same level as Porchester roughly, before, and I'm thinking, hang on, like, been going to that, but my hometown team's higher. Why am I not going along to this? And I went along. I went to another game in the January, like 2007. They played Dagenham and Redbridge in the FA Trophy, and managed to win. And it was, there's about 1,000 people there, like, and such a great atmosphere. And I was like, I need to make a thing of this, really.
Oh yeah.
And it just went from there, and ended up going to some Redditch away games, been to a few other little games here and there in different countries along the way. But I'd say probably about 2016 really started to pick up and become a bit of a ground up and nut, really.
Yeah.
Like the last couple of years, the numbers of matches I've been to is a lot higher, definitely. Definitely hit the bank balance a bit more, definitely.
Question about that. Are you married?
Yes.
How do you get away with going to so many games so I can try and relay this to my wife?
I am probably the luckiest man on the planet in that regard because my wife is a groundhopper as well.
Oh my God! Right, I tell you, we're swapping details. I need to sort this out because, yeah, my wife's allergic to football. I've just about managed to get her to sing the Solskjaer United song. That's as far as she goes, I'm afraid. But yeah, you touch on that. Do you know what? And that's what is so right about this is you go into places in the UK. I mean, I've only done the UK so far. I mean, we'll touch on that shortly, but. You're going to places you'd never ever go to, aren't you? You know, like Wellingborough. I've never heard of Wellingborough, but I went there to watch Dudley Town play, and I'd never been there before in my life. But it was great. There's so many places, little gems, as you say, and the atmosphere around there is just it's spot on, isn't it? And everyone that goes to these games, they're football fans and they want to have fun, don't they? And it makes you feel good when you're there watching it.
Oh, 100%. Like, people are there for the football, for just chatting really as well. Chatting football.
Exactly.
Something that you don't,
yeah.
You've paid so much to go to a Premier League game. And you're not going to guarantee that you're just going to chat football because you want to be focusing on the game that you've paid to watch. So if you went somewhere like United now, you're not fully always going to get that experience where, I've been to a lot of non-league games and I've missed a fair chunk of goals because I've been chatting away with the person next to me, and it doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, I'd love to have seen it, but it's part and parcel of going down there. It's that release at the weekend, going and watching football. It's a full day, isn't it? Like wake up. Where am I going today? Fantastic. Let's make a day of that.
1,000,000%. The thing that I find with Old Trafford now, and I've been a few times over the past couple of years, I've slowed it right down now, is you go there and I feel like half the stadium aren't football fans. I feel like they're there on, they're on holiday or they've just bought a ticket, because they know someone, and you stand there and I just feel like the atmosphere it's soulless in there sometimes. It really is. And I remember back in the days, and you say about the 90s, I remember going in the 90s and being just in love with the atmosphere, just feeling the atmosphere, and as the game goes on, getting more and more, into it. And now what is it I always say to my wife? It's like those buy a gift packages you can buy on the internet.
Yep.
It feels like that now at Old Trafford. It feels like people have just bought two of them and then they've gone there for the day. But it riles me a little bit. But favorite ground you've been to and why?
Oh, that's a very difficult question. I think obviously if we're thinking about like specifically the ground itself and like the look of it and the character of it, it's hard to push past Fratton Park really.
Okay,
local stadium to me, like it's such a unique place. Like you're walking into the ground and you're going literally through someone's back garden to get into one of the stands and to get into the gantry. I remember back in the day, Andy Gray still having to do it when he was commentating, having to climb up this rickety old ladder to get into the gantry. It's still very much like it was, years gone by. It's had a bit of investment recently. The guy used to run Disney as the owner now, that family, and they're investing in it. And they're great at the moment because they want to keep some of the heritage and the character. But, when Fratton Park's rocking, it's fantastic, So probably Fratton Park, and I think in terms of similar with that, like I've always had a thing for Villa Park as well. When I've been there, I've obviously been there a few times. It's
Villa Park, definitely.
The Holt End when that gets going, even still, like we're saying about modern football, I still think the Holt End when that's really rocking. Yeah. I mean, like I find sometimes a few. Knowing a lot of Villa fans, they are very fickle. They when they're up, they're up. When they're down, they're down. But when they're up and they're passionate, like it's fantastic. But you say that about a lot of football fans, really.
Yeah, definitely. I was saying about Fratton Park. So have you ever seen Mr. Pompey there? Then?
Yeah, absolutely.
What a guy!
Oh, yeah, he's such a character. Like he's got his huge clown shoes on. Rolls in about 5 minutes afterwards. When he's there, that bell starts going off and that. But it's all part of the atmosphere. And like you're saying about characters, that's what defines a football club.
1,000,000%.
And, makes it unique. Absolutely. Just seeing people like that. There's a lady as well, like on the way into the ground, who shouts programs like proper Pompey person, but as soon as you're walking up to it, you know, like, oh, that's going to happen in a minute, and it's just, you know, it's great experience. But yeah, those two grounds have got so much character. You know, it's a cliched thing to say, like with the bowl stadiums and how the atmosphere is lost, but there's a reason for that, and they've still got that, you know, unique character to them, those two grounds, and there's many more as well, but I'd say they're the ones that stand in my mind.
Spot on. So you've been far and wide. I've got to ask, favourite player that you've seen then. This can go from any division, so don't feel like you have to pick. But favourite player that you've watched and why.
I would say there's two probably there. Again, I'm finding it hard honoured to pick the particular
all right,
one.
mate. Don't worry.
So what sticks in my mind? I've been lucky, obviously, both us being United fans. If you're thinking about watching particular players, I can remember when I was a kid, as the first few times I went seeing David Beckham before he left. And seeing him and you know, in the game, his passing range, his crossing, lucky enough to see a free kick as well. And I went to the United Legends against Bayern Munich Legends game last season and saw him score there. And he was fantastic.
Oh my God almighty. I mean, you want pantomime. You've got it when right at the end when he gets that goal. I was just, I think we were 4-0 up at that point, weren't we?
That's
and
right.
I think when that goal went in, it was as if I was back in Old Trafford '99, and I jumped off the sofa. I was so happy. I loved him. He was he's my idol. Love him as a footballer. I think just the man himself. Something Zidane always says about him. I don't know if you've watched. Of course, you've watched the Class of '92.
Yeah.
He says he was the same with the director of the club as he was with the tea lady, and I think that just speaks volumes of the man, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. My mate Nick, who's got a fantastic job, he works for Football Manager. Lucky guy.
Oh my God.
So he was lucky enough when he was doing a coaching stint in America, when Beckham was playing for Galaxy. He met Beckham because his kids were, I think it was Cruz and Romeo, were doing a football class, and he had a chat with him for 20 minutes, him and his mate, and he said it was nice to see him with all the cameras down and all of that. He said he was literally like the nicest bloke. He was just really relaxed and just chatting, and you know, it's really nice to hear, really. But yeah, Beckham, I remember him just in the warm-up before the game doing cross-field passes to him and Varane, basically across the whole pitch doing passes, and it was like sat-navs. They were pinging it back and forth, and it was fantastic to see. And then I think if I'm thinking about a particular game where a player stood out for me, I'd say I went to a match in Sydney when I was travelling in 2013 with my wife. We went to watch Sydney FC. There's a few Scottish guys in our hostel. One of them was the son of John Robertson, the Hearts legend striker. He scored a fair few goals. I didn't know that at the time, but found out afterwards. But he said, "Do you want to go to this match?" We're like, yeah, fantastic, brilliant, let's go. We're lucky enough to get some free tickets when we turned up. Some guy was just there and was like, "Do you want some tickets?" My mate hasn't turned up, so that was a win.
Oh, right.
But it was when Del Piero was playing for him, lucky enough. And I can't remember particularly if he scored or what the case was, but I just remember him being an absolute class above all the other players there. There was a few old, I think there was Brett Emerton who played in the Premier League playing as well. But Del Piero at whatever age he was, late 30s, 40, he absolutely ran the show. Absolutely ran the show. And that performance sticks in my mind. Just the touch and the brain on him. It was incredible.
Honestly, mate, this is we're connected here because best player I've seen live is Del Piero, and it was only in a friendly at Old Trafford when he played for Juventus. It was a 0-0 friendly. It was horrific, but I watched him, and that night he must have been probably 31, 32 at that point, and he just destroyed Raphael at right back. Every time Raphael went near him, he couldn't touch him. And what stuck out was he got subbed off at half time. And I thought, all right, well, that was good to watch him. And when the final whistle came, I thought Del Piero's there, and instead of going on the subs bench, he put his training top on and he was signing autographs all the way around the pitch. Just took his time, went round everyone, and I thought that's incredible. That's a proper footballer, isn't it? Giving back to these fans, which again, you don't see it that much anymore. It's more of a hindrance, isn't it, for some of these footballers?
Oh, absolutely. That's a sign of a proper sportsman. That there's a few people who will do that. It always sticks me with tennis. Rafa Nadal will always, even if he's lost, he'll sign tennis balls and stuff as he goes off. But 100% with people like Del Piero, mesmerizing player talent.
Yeah.
And I can imagine him like running the show, whoever he's playing, whether it's Sydney or Juventus.
Yeah, they never lose it, do they? These players.
No, definitely not.
So I've probably answered my own question here. You've probably already answered the question for me. Longest distance travelled for a game?
Yeah, that it would be that. If we were talking like specifically for a game, I was having a hard time thinking about that. Like, where have I gone specifically? Like, I'm going to that game. But Sydney was more of a like, that's obviously the furthest, but that was more like it came up at the time.
Yeah.
I'd say the furthest I've travelled for a game, kind of like not just for the game, obviously, like was Japan last summer. We went on a trip to South Korea and Japan. Obviously, being teachers, both of us are teachers. Like we can make big benefit of that, having the 6-week holiday. We went away for about 2.5 weeks, but went to go watch a team called Kyoto Sanga, which were in the second tier, because I was, wherever I go now, if I'm lucky, I try and get in a bit of a game wherever we go abroad. My wife, although she is, loves football, very lucky with that, loves non-league football as well. She only loves it to a certain degree. I know when to shut up. But
I'd take that, mate. I'd happily take that if mine was
exactly.
like that.
Exactly. But, I'm like, right, we'll go to one game. Like, which one should we go to? And that one seemed to just fit best. But, absolute amazing. Like, there's loads of things I could say about them. Their fan base, like cultural experience, they were fantastic. The country itself, incredible. I could talk for hours on just Japan, but Kyoto Sanga is probably the furthest where I've gone knowing before going away. Like, I'm going to be going to that
That's
game.
Brilliant.
But yeah.
Best fans you've witnessed then, because you've been far and wide. So best set of fans you've watched.
Probably actually like. There's a few, like with what we were just saying, Kyoto Sanga, to be fair. For different reasons, really. I think for just welcoming and, supporting their club and really passionate, it'd be them. Like they were, when we walked into the ground, it's one of these old athletic stadiums. They've moved to a nice plush new stadium for this, when the new season will be starting. But that was their last season there, so it was nice to see that. But it was this old rickety athletic stadium. We're getting about half an hour before kickoff because we couldn't really read the tickets. So we thought, let's get in and find out where we're sat. And I'd purposely booked us in with the ultras, like the Sanga supporters. So I was like, right, let's go sit with these guys. And they were in there singing, all of them, half an hour before the kickoff, singing the praises of their Brazilian talent, like Juninho is called. And they had all of the flags, the tifo, like going over. They'd adopted the kind of European ultras kind of mantra, but it was all positive. There was no, hooliganism or like thuggish behaviour. They were just there to support their team, and it was so refreshing to see.
Yeah.
There was a couple of other Groundhoppers next to us, just by chance. A couple of guys from France, they're from Nice supporters, and this Kyoto Sanga fan bought all of us a scarf. Like he just threw it at us, like, welcome to the club. And I thought incredible. That was so nice. So we bought him a few beers, to thank us for it, basically, like, because he, absolute legend providing us with that. But yeah, they made us welcome. My wife was waving the Ultras flag. Like they said, do you want to have a go at this and that? So they were fantastic. But probably another one to note as well was like what really surprised me actually was me and my mate Chad went to Toronto a few years back, and we took in a game there. And obviously with the MLS, you don't know what to expect really with like fan culture. Like, some people would say it'd be quite cringy, but it really blew me out the water, Toronto FC. We went to a fan pub before the game and had a few drinks and a little bit tipsy. We were wandering the street to the match, not too far from the ground. And we just heard this like noise. And, being in this kind of half state we're in, we're like, let's just follow that. Let's go find it. And we come around the corner and it's this big mob of like fans, and they've got, some of them have got their face covered up and stuff like that. And they weren't particularly like rough or anything, but they just had that kind of European ultra vibe about them. And it was clearly their firm, like their fan base. And there was this guy with a megaphone and they were like doing a kind of march to the stadium. So we just kind of got caught up in that. And all like kind of European style chanting. Went under the like underpass to the subway station by the ground, and they were letting off like flares and banging drums, and we ended up actually following them into their section of the stadium. It's pretty poor security, to be honest, for somewhere like Canada. I was surprised because we were supposed to be up in the gods, but there was a few of them then. They're all European expats, to be honest. That's probably why, again, it's quite good. There's all like Italians and Polish, Serbians. They were like, yeah, no, like just walk with us and you'll come in. You're going to stand with us for the game. And we went in with these guys, and I'm not going to lie, like it was literally just let's have a few drinks. We watched the guy with his megaphone, followed along with him, and the main things I remember was a Giovinco brilliant free kick. Jose Altidore score, and then I couldn't tell you about the rest of the game. Like it was just literally following the guy with the megaphone at the front, and the atmosphere was so good. So if anyone's ever in Toronto, I'd 100% recommend getting behind the goal end of that. It was really impressive, and they couldn't believe really that was like some of the best support. Up with teams like Portsmouth, obviously in the UK is probably the best. Can't really go wrong with the Fratton end there. But like they were like, what? Like, how can we be, so up there? I said, no, like, obviously there's still a lot for me to go and see, but really thought this was impressive. So they were taken aback by that. That's definitely fantastic. Yeah.
Jose Altidore could score in any division other than the Premier League.
I know. Yeah. He was an absolute beast that day. And then when you think of him for like Hull City and Sunderland, he absolutely sucked.
Just couldn't do it, did he? So okay, flip it on its head a bit. So what's the worst thing that you've witnessed on your travels then, football wise?
I think there's been, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like I go personally go to the football, and I love people really for like positive experiences.
Yeah.
And
fun, don't you?
Yeah, and that's what it's about, and like that's what I think you can support your team. And have a fantastic time, and it doesn't need to be about like full on goading the opposition and throwing up the V's and everything. Yeah, 100%. Like have banter. Like we've got our local team who we have a derby with Porchester called Fareham. We have El Creekio because the Porchester Creek separates us. That's fantastic. If you ever get the chance to come down, you need to come for El Creekio. But we have banter with them on Twitter, and I'm like, you need to come down to the porch here, and they're just like, I'd rather stick nails in my eyes, and all of that. And we have the games, and that's hopefully something to build. But it's not like, we're going to go and kick off with them, all round. I'd see you outside after the game. It's disgraceful. So I think with that, there's been a few times I've been to a few clubs. Like nothing against the club itself; they're absolutely fine. But I've been to Hungerford Town a couple of times. My wife supports Western Supermare as her non-league team, so I've been to go watch that. Random. And
why?
You asking me? Yeah, it's basically we're both from the Midlands. She's from Stratford-on-Avon. And
oh, really?
We met at sixth form, and it's a funny story, really. How I was walking with her before we were going out to badminton or something like that in the sports hall, like Wednesday sports, and I was like, because she was supportive, so I was like, into football. And at the time, she supported Man United. She's a Villa fan now. I like to remind her that. Yeah. But,
oh my God.
But she said, I said, I support Redditch United. And then her response was, they're in the Blue Square North, aren't they? And I was like, excuse me? And I was like, it was that day. I think I said that in my wedding speech. I was like, that was that day. Like, right, marriage. There we go. But in terms of Western, she basically, I think, used to go down there with her parents, because that's probably for you as well similar. Like it's one of the closest, beaches really to the Midlands, like Western Super Mud.
I suppose you would say actually, yeah.
Yeah, and they used to go down, and I think her parents just said once, like, should we go to the match? Because they're quite sporty people. And she went, and then they loved it, and they just kept going back. And it's a team that stuck with us. Like going down there. There's a really good fans as well. There's one fan called Simon who we speak to when we go there, and he's been to, I think it's every Western game, like for the last 30 years. He's never missed a match. He is absolutely incredible with that.
And they're important, aren't they? Important to the club, people like that.
Oh, 100%, really, really valuable. But with what you were saying about like negative, we went there with to go watch Western. It's not too far from us. And there was some lads spitting at the Western camera camera boy, like, the side, like just trying to put him off and stuff. Yeah, it was disgusting, really, like seeing a bit of that. And seen a few things like that where you've just got that, again, going back to like negativity, really, just people trying to start fights with opposition fans. And that's probably in terms of like the worst like memories of football, like, with that, seeing stuff like that. Lucky I haven't had too many with that, but I think in terms of football, worst, of a football match, like memory, it's probably about 4 years ago, Redditch, they're in the Southern Premier Division at the moment. They were rock bottom, and they're lucky, really, that the season got cancelled because they got saved from that. But they, a few years back, they came second in the league and they're in the playoffs. And I drove back in the middle of the week to go watch the semi-final. I'd just finished school. We'd actually had Ofsted a few days before.
Oh, wow.
So we've been inspected. So I was like,
very stressful time, mate.
and it wasn't great either. So I'm like, right, no, we're going back to. I drove up, went straight to the match with my mate and my dad and my in-laws as well. They came down, and we were 1-0 up, and we ended up. It was 119. No, it would have been the 92nd minute or something like that. Leamington, who we were playing, equalised, and the ground just fell silent. And you could just hear, 100 or 50 Leamington fans, just that noise, like going absolute bedlam at the other end of the ground, and it was horrible, and we ended up losing on penalties. This was at home as well. This was, you feel like that was our moment to go back, into the Conference North. We haven't been anywhere near since, and I won't go into the full details. And I'm a bit distant from it now, being down here, but there's a lot of standoffs between the fan base and the chairman. It's not in a good place, the club, at the moment, unfortunately. So I think it'll be a while until we experience that again. But look, I think from football, it was absolutely gutting. Brilliant experience. Same time, the game and us being in a high stakes situation. But absolutely gutting. Yeah.
It's sad, isn't it? Because I mean, I was at Old Trafford when we lost 4-1 to Liverpool.
Oh Christ!
And I was so angry, but never at any point did I sit there and think, I need to go and fight someone now. I need to find someone outside the ground and just have a fight. I need to. It's the only thing I can do. And I don't understand the small-mindedness with some of these people who go watch football. Like, the flip side of it is that I went to watch Dudley Town against Lichfield City in the FA Vars, and I remember the Dudley team turned up, and I could hear them, making a racket. And do you know what? They're a great bunch of lads, actually. But I remember the fans turning up. I remember watching these lads come with their flags, and I looked at them, and my initial perception, I thought, oh God, here we go. These are going to be a nightmare. But I tell you what, they were brilliant. They were brilliant. And it's sad that we can have this perception. We see a group of guys turn up and they're really, really loud, and you think, oh, this is going to go wrong way. But they end up being really, really good football fans. So it's quite sad that sometimes you worry about that. But let's get away from the negativity. Give me your funniest memory from football.
So that goes back to characters. So Redditch United had this fan. His name's Roger, and his actual full name Roger Moore as well. He, funny enough, probably when I was about 11, he was in my dad's, the running club in Redditch my dad used to go to, and he was known as the kind of, how do you want to put it? He was the unique character, is the way of saying it. He stuck out, the black sheep of the group. And fast forward about 5 years later, I think he might have been kicked out of the running club as well. I'm not sure, but he fast forward about 5 years later. It was that Dagenham and Redbridge match, actually, the one described earlier. There's this guy who's got a drum down at Redditch, and he's got this massive beard and a hat on, and he's like, "Oh, you Reds!" shouting like that. And I thought, this guy's eccentric, isn't he? And the local paper arrived the following Friday or something, and my dad "Oh my God, it's Roger." And I was like, that's the guy I saw down the Reds. And, for a good few years, he was there, he's there every game. It's Roger. Yeah, all the teenagers love him, obviously. But basically, about 2012, when we dropped down into the Southern Premier, I think must have been on break from university. So I tried to get in as many away games as possible. So me and my mate, Tim, drove to Banbury, which isn't too far. It's probably Banbury, no more than an hour, maybe. So driving up to where the ground is, about 7 o'clock, And I thought, that's Roger walking, that is. Like, Roger's just walking down the roads and get to the clubhouse. And he comes in and he's all like wearing a jumper and he's sweating buckets, and spoke to one of the fans. And they're like, Roger's just walked here from Redditch. Like, he's walked here. And ended up speaking to Roger. Like, Roger, are you mad? And he basically was like, I just thought, like, nothing better to do today. I'm gonna walk. So he walked to Ulster, which is a local like market town near. Well, I say it's near Redditch. That's a walk in itself, like 10 miles. And he must have started early. He went and had breakfast there, and he was telling me how he's walking through like fields, scrumping apples. Like a dog chased him on the way. And he was at this game, and the chairman had only recently joined then. And I remember him talking to me during the game, and he was like, oh, someone needs to take Roger home. And I was like, you what? And because of some other people had come on the bus and it was full. So, yeah, me being the, yes man, I ended up having Roger in my car. And, we just lost as well in the last minute, driving him back, and the car absolutely hummed, blessed him all the way back to Redditch. And he asked us as we were about to get back into Redditch, like, oh, why don't we go to Sainsbury's and get some cans and sit out in a field? And I was like, I'm good, fam. I'm gonna go home. Like, but yeah, like it's got quite a nice ending to Roger's story actually with Redditch, because I haven't seen him for about like seven years. But he, I think there's some funny reasons why I can't go into why he ended up probably not coming back, but main reason he actually ended up coming back is he I remember seeing him. I'm like, Roger, why haven't you been down the Reds? And he had this little puppy, and he was saying like, well, it was either a season ticket, because he must have, bless him, not had a lot of money. It was either a season ticket or buy a puppy. And yeah, I bought the puppy, and he's obviously had that dog, and he's never looked back. No, he's probably done the right thing with how Redditch has gone in the last few years, to be honest. But,
he must have he must have foreshadowed it. He must have knew it was coming.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, great character, and that's what it's about. Like you said, Mr. Portsmouth, characters like that. Rogers, they make up the non-league scene. What's he called? The Wildston Raider. People like that.
Definitely.
That's what it's about. You like go to games. You're like, that's fantastic. They live and breathe the club.
Where would we be without them, Lewis? Where would we be, mate? We'd be without them. And the thing is, they make, as you say, they make games colourful. They don't leave it dull, and that's what you want. I'd take 100 Rogers over one idiot fan any day of the week. And that's a really positive story, mate. I'm actually really glad you told me that, because I'm sort of thinking of how far Banbury is. That's a hell of a walk. Fair play to him. He definitely I wouldn't be able to
committed.
Do it. That's spot on.
It's like about 50, 60 miles, something he walked in one day. Absolute nutter, but fair play.
Just to lose in the last minute. Minute. That's
he's funny enough, actually. We're all quickly still on Roger. When we were about 19, my mate Tim, who I'll say this as well, dude. Like he loves a good fib. Tim does. Like he's not the most believable character. I remember him saying Michael Jackson's died when he had died at our prom. He texted her, and I didn't believe him. I was like, oh, jog on. Text. And and then they were playing Michael Jackson music in the club later, and I'm like, oh, he must have been right. But Tim, when we were on a night out once, was like, Roger's in Fever, which is our local club. Roger's in Fever.
We've got a Fever.
Fever. Like it's like this little club like where you go before the big one, and when you're like 19, and you're like Roger's in Fever. I'm like, don't believe you. Don't believe you. And he's like, look over there. And lo and behold, like Roger Moore stood there in his Redditch United coat in the middle of the club. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a fantastic night. And we ended up bringing him along to the main club afterwards, singing with him on the way to the place, and he was buying his drinks for the night. Yeah, absolute legend.
Oh, that's brilliant, mate. I love that, and I think that's why we do this podcast. I think people love stories like that. It's almost feel good stories, really, isn't it? When you hear about people like Roger, and like I said, the game would be lost without people like him, I think. I've really enjoyed this, mate. I've got to be honest. I really, really enjoyed this. I've done a couple of these so far, and it's been really, really fascinating. Some of the stories you've told me. I mean, going from Japan to Australia to Canada. It's I really appreciate you coming on tonight, mate. Thank you so much for that. Big question is when are we doing? When are we going to be ground sharing? When are we going to be going to each other's games? I think that's the next one, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, likewise. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Like, hasn't even felt like doing some sort of like podcast or interview. It's been a conversation, which is what it should be. But 100%, like, have a look when the fixture lists finally come out. We'll have a look. Definitely an El Creekio or something like that would be the one to come. But I'll
say it now, Lewis. I'm going to do the first El Creekio. I'm promising you now. I will come and do it. Definitely, 1,000,000%.
Fantastic.
1,000,000%.
Looking forward to it. And likewise with Wolverhampton Casuals, as you say, I'm really looking forward to that. I will because I'll come back to the Midlands obviously quite a lot. My parents still live just outside of Redditch, like now.
Okay.
Yeah,
bro.
Yeah, I might have to bring my dad along, like it says, well, because he's from that neck of the woods, kind of way. So yeah, like
you'll come and they'll get drilled 5-0.
Yeah, probably. But I'll come to anything, and that sounds fantastic as well. Like, I love ticking off. I need to tick off some more Midlands grounds as well.
Spot on, mate. Well, look, it's been a pleasure having you on tonight, and I very much look forward to having you on again. Without a doubt, I feel like there's a lot more stories in that brain of yours, mate. So I definitely want to tap into them in the future if I can.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Spot on. Right then, guys. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna say thank you to Lewis for coming on to the latest episode of Tales of a Groundhopper. You've been fantastic, Lewis, and we'll speak soon, mate. Take care.
Yeah, same to you too. Stay safe.
Take care, buddy. So, guys, I'd just like to reiterate, really, thank you to Lewis from Total Hoofball from coming on Tales of a Groundhopper and sharing all of his stories of his travels and where he's been to. As always, guys, I really appreciate the following that you're doing for me. If you could please be sure to follow us on Twitter at FootballWant, and it's Football Is, and that is what I want on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Thanks very much, guys. Football is, and that is what you got.